Hi, I'm Angus Kress Gillespie, your host for Old Ways in New Jersey, here on East Brunswick Television. Thanks for joining us. As you may already know, to promote international understanding and the strengthening of cultural ties, Rutgers University in nearby New Brunswick has worked with a variety of international universities to establish professor-scholar exchanges. Now, these exchanges send Rutgers faculty abroad while bringing professors from around the world to teach and lecture in New Jersey. This program supports critical exchanges of ideas, values, and traditions while encouraging Rutgers faculty members to create important academic connections and partnerships. Under this program, Qiliang He is visiting Rutgers from the People's Republic of China this academic year. I'm here in the studio with him, and he's agreed to share some of his impressions of the United States with us. So it's my pleasure to welcome Qiliang He to our studio today. Qiliang, what's the purpose of your visit here to the United States?
Actually, I'm a visiting scholar here, and one of my missions of coming to the United States is to actually to know some American culture, because back in my university, I'm a teacher of Chinese culture. So I want to know some of the stories about how American cultures actually are successfully transmitted to the rest of the world. And I also want to know that how the rest of the world know and understand the Chinese culture.
So it might be fair to say that you're interested in comparative cultures.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's a kind of very interesting study between the American culture and Chinese culture.
And what did you think of the U.S. prior to your visit? It's very open-ended.
Okay, and we have read a lot about the United States, and actually I'm an English major.
Yes.
I mean, in my studies, read a lot from books about the United States. America is a marvelous country for its advanced technology, for its brilliant ideas of education, and for its very high qualities of life here. Yeah. And so this is all we know about America.
So Qiliang, how long have you been here?
I've been here for more than 6 months this time.
Okay. And how much longer will you be able to stay?
I will stay here until the end of August. Probably another 5-6 months to stay.
And did you have a choice between, say, Great Britain, Australia, and the U.S., or was this was a program beamed towards the U.S.?
Actually, we have choices, but my choice is the United States, because what I think is because America, as I said, is a different country.
You had previous visit to Australia, did you?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I have been a visiting scholar 4 years ago in Australia. Yeah. And also I have been visiting UK, France, and some other countries. But I think United States, it's a very different country. So
and the Australian accent's quite different from the American.
Oh, it is. It is. Sometimes it's not so easy to understand. So I have to listen very carefully to these people. And
me too.
Some of the educated people actually are better, but even some professors in their classes, there's still some very strong accents.
They speak in the vernacular. Yes.
I don't understand sometimes. Yeah.
And what places have you been able to visit here in the U.S.? It's a big country, of course.
This time, actually, I haven't been much. I've been in my previous visits. Actually, I've been to many places in the U.S. The first time in the United States, I've been to California. I stayed about more than 2 weeks there, and I was an interpreter then. Actually, I was interpreting for agriculture delegation from China. They are studying about the citrus fruit. So I visited the Sunkist headquarters. And I know a lot about citrus production and all the processing process. I mean,
very interesting.
Yes, and also the second time I come to the United States is about 10 years ago, and I visited many universities, like the Missouri University and the University of Boston and Tufts, and all those universities. And I was an interpreter then, and I interpreted education delegation from China. So that's why I know a lot of universities there.
Based on your visits, what do you like most about the U.S.?
Oh, I think United States is really a very marvelous country. I mean, what I'm very much impressed by this country is about its lovely people, and its very friendly people, and high quality of life, and its very good environment. I mean, it's very suitable for people to live, because you have very good patches of land and forests-like places, and good housing, and you have a very, actually, comparatively speaking, a very low cost of living in the U.S. And all of this impressed me very much. And of course, the universities. I mean, I spent most of the time in the university, and I find the university life and the professors' dedication to their work, and students' learning atmosphere. Like on weekends, students are busy with the work. I mean, that impressed me very much.
Well, we as Americans appreciate such nice compliments, but let me put you on the spot. What do you like least about America? And don't hesitate to criticize it. We can take it.
Yes, I think America, I say, is a good country, but of course there's something that we think is not so much comfortable about.
Yes.
Like this country don't have the good transportation, the public transportation.
Good point.
Like I'm a visiting scholar here, and I want to have a car, but for a short time. I mean, sometimes I think it's not necessary in that. But transportation, the public transportation, is not so much convenient. And because the United States, the marketplaces and their entertainment centers will be scattered away. So it's not so much easy for us to go to different places, and even sometimes for our living is not so much convenient. I mean, if the United States has a better transportation system, that will be much better.
I can only agree with you. I think that we're overly dependent on individual automobiles, and the public sector suffers. Yeah.
Yes, it's because I know differences between the U.S. and China, because most of the Americans that depend on their own automobiles, and America is a country on wheels, as we read. So that's why. Because another thing I understand is that you don't have so much greater population as China. So that's why you don't need the kind of public transportation.
Because of population density in China. Yeah.
Of course it is. China, think about the United States has only 1/10 about of the Chinese population.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. China is about 1.4 billion now. So
that's something we as Americans don't always think about. But yeah, that's a very large number.
I mean, for you are very sparsely populated. For us, it's densely.
Yes.
So that's why we need the public transport. But it's convenient for us anyway.
Of the American food, what do you like the best?
I really like the idea of American fast food. I mean, this idea is really inspiring me. We read a lot in the textbooks, but now I'm here.
It's convenient. It's low cost.
Oh yes,
and it's fast.
And I think it's kind of like to science. According to science, it's very much to the science. I mean, like you have different kinds of nutritions in a fast food, in a burger, in a Subway. Yeah. So a lot of those, I mean, they are very good. I like that kind of idea because you have the protein, you have the starch, and you have the kinds of vitamins and all different kind of minerals.
And it's inexpensive.
Not so much expensive. I mean, for the first few times, I'm not so much used to it.
Yeah.
But I think for later on, we get used to that, and it is really the good idea.
Yeah.
My daughter studies in the UK, and he likes UK and United States have some kind of.
Yeah.
So he likes the idea of the fast food. You know. It's really interesting and.
Another difference between American universities and Chinese universities, the Americans put a lot of emphasis on football. What's your take on American football?
Oh, that's really amazing. I mean, I really, sometimes still now, I don't really understand why American people are so much crazy about college football.
And this year, you're living in Piscataway, not far from that enormous stadium. It must have really impressed you the first time you saw it.
That's right. When I went there, I thought it was a festival, because in China it's just like China's festival is less than that. Every family, every American people seem to be very cheerful. They bring their cars with them, with the food with them. They spend the whole day there. Children are so much happy, and I mean, sometimes I don't understand why these Americans will be so crazy about American football, because we can't have that kind of sports culture like that in China. It could be just some kind of sports fans or some people who support that.
Not so widespread.
No, not. I mean, still I ask some of my friends why these people are so crazy about all this, because they'll spend whole day there, and even at a very late night.
Yeah.
They're still cheering.
And not just the game, but the pageantry, the cheerleaders and the flash flags and the band.
Right, the atmosphere. I just want to go there and see everything there is red, scarlet nights, the flags, people in the red shirts, the chairs. You know, it's very enjoyable. I mean, so it's
celebratory. Yeah.
It's difficult still. Sometimes I'm thinking of that. That's a kind of sometimes I want to know if I want to do some to know about the sports cultures or football cultures in the United States.
Yeah.
Which is really a very interesting topic for the Chinese.
Yeah. So you've been here for about 6 months?
Yes, more than 6 months.
What do you miss most about China?
Actually, I think the people, because I haven't seen my
your family, of course.
Yeah, the family and my colleagues.
Yeah.
And my students and all this, the people. Yeah.
I think sometimes it's lonely here when you're there.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It is, because but thanks to the good communication facilities, we can WeChat and we can calls means very often.
You use Skype, I presume.
Yes. I use in China we have a WeChat, which we can, like on a Skype, we can talk very easily, and then. But still, I miss some of my family members.
Yeah, of course. Other than improving the public transportation, what could the U.S. do to make visitors more comfortable to our country?
Up till now, I don't think there is much for, because the United States is really an inviting country. And I think maybe some of the cultural differences, and maybe Americans, I don't know, Americans know or get to know more about China or Chinese culture.
Well, let me follow up on that. Do you find that Americans don't really know much about China?
I don't think much of the Americans know that, because if some people who are interested in China, they know about China, and most people, they don't care, I think.
Yeah.
They probably may have a kind of sometimes negative aspect of China. But that's why I wish if people want to know more about Chinese culture, to make them understand more about China. Like, for example, in China, people usually drink tea and hot water. But hot water is seldom served, I think, across the campus or because usually it's coffee or it's cold water. But we like hot water, but I can't find anywhere. So that's something which is for many people, they think it's very habitual to them. So
even if you have your own tea, there's no hot water.
No, there's no hot water, because in many canteen and restaurants, they don't serve water. They don't say we have coffee, we have different drinks, or cold drinks, or cold water. So that's a different differences. I mean, a different culture.
Are there other examples of culture shock that come to mind?
Yes, sometimes. And actually, America and China, I mean, as human beings, they are very universal. They are common. They have common characters.
Yes, of course.
But certainly they have differences. Like you have your own, way of dealing with people and treating with matters. Like, I mean, Americans are more like to be independent, to be like kind of individualism is more what they like, and they don't like to be to concern with other issues, which is not. I mean,
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. In other words, it's fair to say in China there's more cooperation. There's more community. In the U.S., people look out for themselves.
I think, say, if you, it's the same experience like I was in Australia. So when I was in Australia, and nobody thinks about what they are doing. I had an office, and nobody come to visit you. And the faculties, I mean, I have a lot of faculties, and the deans, and I've get along well with all those people, but they don't really pay visit to you. So
yeah, well, the other thing is if you're going to visit an American in an American's home, you have to make the appointment in advance. You can't just show up.
No, of course. Yes, I understand that. And then,
but that's not so true in China, right? You could just pop in. You could. Just,
that's right. That's right. So that's why I mean, I had an office, and everybody knows this where my office is, and they come. I understand that they come and visit me as anytime they can like, but
they don't want to disturb me. No,
but they don't.
Yeah.
So that's something that's frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
A little bit. So,
can you compare American and Chinese attitudes towards the police?
Oh, I think it's quite different, because as far as I know, police in the United States has more power than the Chinese. I mean, from what I understand, I've read stories and watched some television programs about, and probably American police has too much power. Sometimes I'm not sure about that, but sometimes I think they have a kind of sometimes abuse some of the power. Because
do Chinese policemen have guns, firearms?
Depends on what kind.
Yeah.
Like, I think Chinese police are a kind of more collective. Like, if the policeman, if they do find some kind of problems, the usual things is not, they will not do it by himself or herself. He would like to report this case to his or her authorities and have them to decide. It's not by themselves to decide the case. So it's more, I think, a kind of to collective force. So very often the police will like to salute to the people and say, like, your car is overspeeding, and then something like this. And generally, I think it's more like people-oriented.
Service-oriented.
Yeah, maybe it's like in the Chinese police. And
maybe the Chinese police, they try to persuade the person to slow down.
I'm not sure if Americans, the general public have to salute to the police.
No.
No? So I'm not sure about, but it seems that I have the understanding that the Chinese police don't really, they want to execute their power right on the spot. If it is really, unless it is an emergency. I mean,
they're more restrained.
I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a kind of things.
And can you compare just for us briefly the Chinese and American attitudes towards the elderly?
Okay. I think that's different, because
Very different.
Simply because of the values. The American social values and Chinese social values are different. The Chinese society is more like the Confucianist, so they respect the elderly, and usually the elderly and the younger generation, they have a kind of they think they have a kind of a responsibility to each other. So very often even though the child is over like 18 years old, or even married after marriage, and maybe they live separately, but still the Chinese parents will think they have the kind of responsibility to look after the younger generation. And in return, the younger generation will think, it's my responsibility to look after the old. So always they respect the old, and even in the whole society, it's like this. But I think in America, it's more like the kind of individualism, the independence. So, and maybe it's kind of more like the elderly will think, I can do it my own, and the younger generation will think maybe it's not possible. I'm not sure, but so it's a kind of great differences, I think. Actually now, not so, even though there's not so much a bigger family as it used to be, like
Yes.
20 or 30, like there are 4 or 3 generations living together, but still, I think generally, I think the elderly in China are very happy when they're getting to their old age, because they have
Because they enjoy respect.
yes, and I think so many people
And they still have a role in society to give advice to the young.
oh, that's of course, and even like a meeting.
They're not pushed aside.
No, of course not. And like the meeting, and usually we say that white hairs will speak first, and they have the first way to say, and his opinions are more observed, and because he has experience, and he has more ideas.
That's very different. It's
So
very-
that's the way I think, which I think is quite. So for Americans, it's like in the universities, we don't usually call the professors for their first names. We will have to call him professor, because it's really implied, or sometimes we think it's rude for a student to call the professor's first name.
But it happens in the U.S.
So that's why I think it's a kind of for us it's not kind
Very
of
strange.
yes, it's frustrating, of course, and in Australia it's the same. I mean, that's America, because the dean of the school, he comes to meet me at the airport, and as before we communicate in our letters, we often address for professor, and the first time when we met, he said, "Please call my first name. I'll be very embarrassed if he always called me professor," he said.
Huh.
And the first question he asked me is, "Please tell me your first name.
Wow.
I will address your first name." So so every time then I call his first name, but for the first few times,
You felt awkward.
we feel it's frustrated to be, because he's much older than me, and he's very, I mean, this is a person in Chinese society has to be respected.
Yes.
And why I should do like that? I mean, so it's a really a kind of, but he feels it's very close, because when we addressed for the first name, he thinks it's a close relation. He said, if you think they call him the professor, it seems that the relation is a bit depart. So this is what I don't really. So it's not much like followed in China, in Chinese universities.
And moving along, can you compare China and America in terms of helpfulness to strangers?
Oh, it's different. I think American people are very friendly. They are very helpful, and even to somebody he doesn't know. I think he's doing the people. He's helping people with his true to the heart. Sometimes I say, because he really wants to understand from the other side of the people and see what really he wants, what he really needs. So, and like in the university, I've met very good professors. So, and they are very helpful to me during the only a few months, a short time stay here. So,
would an American in China perhaps have more difficulty seeking help?
not really. I mean, the Chinese, of course, probably know. In China, many years ago, we have a movement that the society should cherish a kind of a moral to help what is needed, because there are a lot of people who are needed. So, and if you come to a city, I mean, as a stranger, and you will receive a lot of warm help. Like in China, some people say asking the way, asking directions, or they will give you a lot of truly helpful advices or help, assistance. But in America, I think it's different. They are, of course, not all Americans, but I met some people who are really very helpful, and they're very considerate of others. And he's thinking, I think he's pleasing to the hearts of that who really needs the help. So that's a very moving stories. And I can list a lot for that. And even somebody I don't know, and he will be doing, I can give you more details like this. And he's very patient.
Yes.
And and he doesn't ask for anything.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes I think, why he's such kind of helpful to me. I think this kind of, I will always remember their help.
Yes.
Because they are really doing something wonderful in this world. Yeah.
And have there been any situations where Americans have some profound misunderstanding about China, where you felt like you really had to straighten them out, or you had to be an ambassador for your country, you had to speak up for China, you had to defend China?
Okay. It's not something like to defend China. I think it's something like, as I said earlier, not many Americans understand China. And I think Americans understand China mostly from the media, from the mainstream media.
Yes.
So like, I think the media has their purposes. The media has their kind of, they have their services. So sometimes media will be a little bit over-exaggerating.
Yes.
And but Americans, some of Americans are very much impacted by the media. They get the stories, they get the impressions about China, mostly from the media.
And some of these impressions are unfair.
Some of them are, sometimes there's something there, and maybe it's more than what, it's not so much as it's written or it's broadcasted on media, maybe it's doing more of that. So, and that's make a force or a little bit kind of a misunderstanding, causing misunderstanding to the general Americans, because they don't have the chance to visit there. Yeah. Like because China now, of course, there are many different stories about Chinese stories, and the media will often make too much point on this and say too more on that. So to make the Americans to understand, oh, that's something.
It's not typical.
But that's not actually the case. The case.
All in all, what's the best part of this visit?
I think I learned a lot from my observation, from my understanding, from my sitting up in different classes of professors. So I learned from professors. All the professors are very knowledgeable, like Angus Gillespie, and he actually, your classes have given me a lot of insightful ideas. I mean, like American folk. So this is from the education part. I mean, China has a lot to do to catch up with America in its way, because I spent most of my time in universities, and I have been a university teacher for more than 30 years.
Wow.
So I know what is China's university is about, and I know a lot about now.
Yeah.
About
and when you go back, you'll have a rich repertoire of stories.
Oh yes, I've told them, and I think American professors are very knowledgeable, very dedicated, and has a very clear idea about what he's doing to his students. So.
Well, Qiliang, I want to thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to share your insights with us here on East Brunswick Television. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.